Hello and welcome to the Heads and Volleys podcast with me, Lee Dunn. All right, Heads and Volleys, I have a wonderful guest today. I'm really excited to get to this conversation because it's something that I myself have been a critic of. So I'm going to welcome Coach Miguel Gutierrez, Coach Migzi, as he's known to his mates. So Migzi, welcome, mate.
Well, thank you for having me on in today's podcast. It's great to see deliver messages out there in terms for high school and being an advocate for high school sports and youth sports in general.
So I talk about being a critic because I think worked in an environment where people laughed at the high school level of play, and we'll get into that. But give us a little intro of who you are, where you live, what you do, where you're from.
Yeah, so Coach Miguel, and I coach down in the Kilroy area, which is like Central Coast, a little bit South Bay of San Jose, I guess you can say. And I've been coaching for, I want to say, 6-7 years. Have a U.S. soccer license, working on the C, but working on it just quite working on it, and have a background in coaching club, high school, middle school. I was volunteer college coach, and during my free time, I also coach, or not necessarily coach, but in my free time, I go and observe coaches. I love enjoying that from clubs, and mostly from college coaches, just because that's where I want to be in their shoes one day.
Let's explore that a little bit. Observation. So just when you get time, you get out and watch. Do you converse with those coaches? They're happy to have you around. I know we talk a lot about coaches having mentors. So is that kind of the approach for you there?
Yeah. So I go out and I'll send them a text here and there, a message, and I'll let them know if I can come. I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to connect with college coaches and they can just have me on. It's great because some of them become your mentors, and you just learn. You learn a lot from them, and maybe someday it'll create an opportunity in terms of maybe one day coaching at their institution, or just learning and building off off your craft.
So when you're observing these guys, is there something in particular that you're looking for, or are you just taking it all in? Are you looking at their coaching style, their delivery, or is there a specific set that you look for?
Yes, absolutely. It's a great question. I look at everything, but most importantly, I look at the relationship. How is the coach interacting with your athletes? How is the atmosphere? Is it a positive? Is it competitive atmosphere? Are there any I look at the body language as well from the coaches, from the players, and kind of determine what's going on the field, and then also look into the style of play that they're playing and how that translates into the game. So I'll watch some of the games, and if there's a home game, I'll go and watch the game and how the practices relate to the game. So
a complete soccer nut that you have some time available and it's completely filled with doing what you would do anyway.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's crunch time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crunch time there, but I really want to learn, and so you just have to make those sacrifices in order to learn.
Oh, that's fair. Absolutely. I think we've connected on Twitter and Instagram, and you can absorb as much information as you can there, but I agree with you. You just can't beat seeing someone in their environment, in their craft. You just can't beat watching someone engaging with their players or finding a way to challenge them in another way. You pick up a lot from just observing, and I don't think enough people do that.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, going back on that, time sacrifice, you can say. That was a student at San Francisco State, and driving from Gilroy to San Francisco, waking up at 4 a.m. and then getting there at 6 a.m. and then observing the coaches out there. It was great, and was lucky enough to just meet a lot of great coaches there, and just learn from colleagues as well. I mean, was able to complete my undergrad, my BS in kinesiology, exercise science, and human movement with minor in athletic coaching, and working on that master's in sports pedagogy, sports science, and hopefully a PhD after. But that comes later.
So let me ask you then, the most or the best coach, maybe the most influential coach that you've observed or worked with, who would that be?
Well, the reason why I got into coaching was actually one of my high school coaches. I mean, he had a big impact on me, and one of the reasons why I got into coaching was because of him. But I've also been fortunate enough to work and observe coaches like Javier Leja at San Francisco State. Now he's at USF. I think he played professional, and he's a great coach. I mean, he turned that program around. And then there was the times where, as an undergrad, I would go and just sit down on the bleachers, and I would see Tracy Ham out there coaching, and I would kind of steal their drills, but then modify my way. Learning, just watching her and her training session was phenomenal, and I know she's at UC Davis right now. But it was great. I mean, I'm a fan of both of them, and it's great. I mean, also was able to go and observe Paul at Stanford for the women's side, and Jeremy at Santa Clara, and Adriana Fast at San Jose State. I mean, I spent more time there. I went like 4 or 5 training sessions out there, and just it's great. You're just surrounded by great colleges and great coaches, and I think coaches should take advantage of it. I mean, I know I am, and I'm just humble and want to learn.
No, it's so valuable, and like you said, you make sacrifices. You maybe give up on some other things to get out and experience those things, but when you're learning your craft, and I think we should all still continuously be learning. It's so valuable. So I think that perhaps your players will thank you for this without even realizing, because you've coached. You have an impressive, I guess, experience range from club to high school, middle school soccer. And so you talk about the little comparison between, or what you see or your experience has been between club soccer and high school soccer.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the differences that I see is, we're in club. There's players, that, and in high school too, and middle school, that kind of could probably you could say they struggle in terms of like development. And so and in club you have say players who there's in clubs you say you hold tryouts, and you have 06 tryouts or 05 tryouts, whatever it may be. And some clubs have like massive teams in clubs in terms of like that age group. So say they might have like a team, a B team, or C team, like the greens, whites, the blues, whatever.
Yeah.
I know you're following this, but they have a lot of those things, and I think sometimes that could be hard in terms of development, because a lot of the coaches just look at the A teams and focus more on the A teams, not the B teams, not the C teams. And I know clubs out there who, and not all of them, but I do know a club that they had like their B team or the C team, I forget which one it was. They didn't have a club coach, and all they had was a volunteer parent. And those girls weren't looking to play college or anything like that, but still, it's crazy. There should be at least a coach out there.
That's a reality, and I think it's a reality in a lot of youth clubs that they see dollar signs walking in and not necessarily players.
Exactly, and going back to the high school club, I think as far as club, you're paid to play, right? Whereas high school, you don't. There's no money being paid. You're not paying playing time. I mean, I think in high school you have to work more. I think you have to work harder. I think just so you can get playing time. Where club, I mean, you should get playing time, and I mean, at the end of the day, parents are paying for it. So, I mean, I think you should get playing time there. But I've enjoyed high school. I've enjoyed high school and like the atmosphere. Depends the coach, what kind of atmosphere they bring to the table. But I enjoyed coaching in high school and middle school as well.
You made an interesting point about playing time there in terms of kind of kids earning their spot in their teams for high school and kind of not having to pay for that. So it's almost like parents, I guess we always go back to parents, but there's often a claim that we're paying all this money and we should be able to play. And so I guess, like you say, high school, it's an honor thing as opposed to buying your way into the club, if you want to say it like that. But in terms of actually earning your starting spot.
Yes. And again, depending on, depending on the high school you're going to, if it's a competitive one or not. I mean, we were here in the Central Coast. I mean, there's a lot of great schools out there and a lot of great players, and going on that. I mean, at least what I do in my program is we have players who come out and try out, correct? And some of these players may not be NPL players or ECNL players or whatever that may be, but they have good attributes and they bring good quality that I like, and so sometimes with them, put them on the varsity and just give them a shot. And I think what I like most about the high school than the club is that if they're incoming freshmen, they're playing up against a higher age group and higher, I guess you can say, level players. And for them to do that, I think it's great. Just because when they go back to the club, they stand out. And I've had players personally come up to me and tell me, like, hey, I like high school better than club. I wish club had the same atmosphere in the same way they can challenge me. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Coming from a player perspective, because I always thought club was a bit more challenging, which it could be depending on where you play and the type of teams you play. But I going back on your question, I think playing time at high school is you have to work hard for it.
Well, the players are older too, so the concept of earning your playing time and earning your spot on the team, I think, is so valuable that you can't really query your playing time.
I mean, you have to work hard for it, right? I mean, it's not going to come easy, and so I try to tell that to my girls. I mean, you have to work hard for it. So, and I mean, of course, if they don't get playing time, of course, you can, start talking about the sports psychology and all the good stuff, and not getting playing time may affect performance or may lead to dropout, which I agree, and which I agree. I mean, there's research out there, but and varsity high school, I mean, we have players who are willing to sit on the bench and get playing time, or not get playing time, and just be part of the team. I mean, in high school, sometimes athletic directors hire coaches to bring winning programs, and a lot of parents and people out there don't see that, and so that kind of puts a lot of pressure on us coaches at the high school level.
Yeah, I can believe that. So then, let me ask you about the season. You talk about pressure, and interestingly, that players, like a player would say, high school over club, and I guess I never really thought about having an opinion either way. But really exploring the idea that my understanding for a long time has been the condensed high school season and the intensity of it, and the frequency of games, and the amount that the amount of stress that's placed on players. So you look at even not having this shared playing time and being in a competitive environment where you want to win or you're pushing for championships, and so you play your top players a lot, and so things like periodization and rest periods come into it. So let's explore that a little bit in terms of that real condensed season, and maybe that's why players like it, because it's lots of games and lots of competition as opposed to once a week.
Yes, absolutely, and that's a great question too. I mean, I love the fact that high school houses a lot of game, and we're the high school, at least in our league, the BVL league. We were trying to minimize playing 3 games a week and stuff. Because that from coming from a sports science background, that is tough playing 3 games a week and stuff,
Oh, wow.
and
Yeah.
that's tough. Definitely takes a toll on the players. And so now we have games Tuesdays and Fridays, which is a bit better. You have three days of rest there, and you have to modify your training sessions, to prepare for games on a Friday or a Tuesday. And the way I did it, at least for my program, was we most of high schools here in Central Coast have access to either athletic trainers or anyone from that profession, PTs. And so what we had it was that we did ice baths and we did recoveries and all that good stuff. But I'm not always playing the same players in terms of lineups.
Right.
I mean, there's players that would play certain games, but there was always time that we would give other players opportunity, and we will rest some players for other games. And some players didn't like it, but I mean, I see it from a injury perspective. We don't want them to get injured, and we want them to have the best high school experience.
So then that sounds. The more I think about it, and I think about, I guess my issue, and I guess a common issue that you would hear is that high school it's a condensed season. I want to explore kind of the playing level separately, but the idea that if you're putting players in this environment where there is a demand, it's almost replicating a college environment or even a pro environment.
Yeah.
So if I think about it, even just on that macro level of resembling the experience or the environment that they really want to find themselves in 2, 3, 4 years down the road, then surely it's a good place to start for them, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a great place to start. And I have some girls who want to go and play college, whether it may be community or 4-year. And I tell the girls, look, this is the closest you're gonna get to maybe playing a college, a similar atmosphere. And in club you get the competitiveness, I think too, but it's just the pride of representing your school. And you can argue it's the same for club. You can you take pride in representing your club, but I feel it's more similar, like college, in terms of you're playing for the school you attend. You're playing for the city that that you probably grew up in, and you have friends in your teams and students and just the whole school behind you. I think
It's like that school pride, the idea of, yeah, I agree with you that we all probably know enough kids that will move on from a club if they don't like the coach or they don't like the playing time, but you don't really change high school for that. You represent your high school with pride.
Yeah, exactly. And then again, you have a lot of players from different backgrounds, different clubs, and I love that, because you have players from good clubs. At least in mine, you have players from MVLA, you have players from Santa Clara Sporting and Orchard Valley, and just players from different clubs. And I think that's pretty sweet, because you combine all of them, and it just like you create this like master team and great team, I think. And there, and you also get players who might not be playing in big clubs, and they contribute to the team a lot, and they might not get a lot of credit at their club, but they get a lot of credit here at high school, and they're developing. I think that's great.
So I want to ask you then about the any sort of pushback. So I know that the high school season changed here in Northern California, and it changed to a winter game so that clubs would release players and there'd be no conflict of what used to be fall high school soccer and fall club league too. So do you see any issues with clubs releasing their players to high school during the winter? Do you find any players that are not allowed to play by their club?
So and usually a lot of clubs out here are pretty good at it. I know I know towards like November, there's always those showcases, but I mean, the CIF, the CCS. I mean, they do a great job in allowing players to, all right, if you're going to play high school, this is the date that you need to stop playing. And as a high school coach, we tell that to our players, like, this is the date you have to stop playing. If there's a showcase or tournament, you have to pick either of the or. You can't do both because or else your high school will be in jeopardy of losing the season, right?
Right.
And usually, a lot of coaches do a great job in doing that. Club coaches, so it hasn't really been a big issue. I don't know how it'll be this upcoming year with this whole COVID-19 thing, but I do know that coaches do a great job, and tournaments out there do great jobs in trying to do that. Northern California is pretty good at that.
There's also been a combination now, I feel, that coaches that coach club and typically older players too will also coach high school. So yes, they have vested interest in releasing players or not having an issue for those players to go on and play, because now they're also benefiting in the high school environment too.
Yes, and for me too, I have girls who I coach club, and then once club season's over, we all transition to high school, and they all go to different high schools, and I go my own high school, so it's fun.
So let me ask you about the level of play then, because early on when I first came to the US, the fear, I guess, when the kind of conflict that I talk about was that coaches would say to their best players, stay and play here, because you go and play high school, there's a chance you play against a kid who doesn't know what they're doing, because that high school that they're playing against doesn't have very good players. And so they find themselves against an opponent who isn't as good as them. Injuries are higher, issues of whatever happening on the field are higher because you're not playing the same level. And so do you find that? Do you think, is that just what people were saying to keep their players and stop releasing them for high school and facing injury? Or is that something that's genuine?
No, I think I can understand why some club coaches may say that. And yeah, there are high schools out there who might not have the highest best teams out there, or might play the best teams out there, and that's I think you have to let the player decide whether they want to play or not, regardless of the level, and just have them try out for maybe a year. And then if they don't like it, they don't see the level is good enough for them, and yeah, of course they can go back to club, or if they're not liking high school for some reason, and throughout, say, half the season they want to quit and go back to club, and by all means, I mean, no one's forcing them to play or anything. They definitely could do that. But yeah, I understand where some club coaches may be coming from, and if the level isn't there, then yeah, club coaches have great way to argue in that, to come and play club, and if they want to go and play college or something. And a lot of these players that end up not playing high school is probably the ECN now girls, or MPL girls, and the DA especially. So it's a tough decision on the player, but at the end of the day, it's their decision, and whatever they feel happier.
Yeah, I guess that's a fair point, that it is that players can make those decisions. And I know there's a guy in the club that I coach at. He has been told he's not allowed to play high school because of the level he's playing at. And so I ask him about that. And does that bother you? Is that an issue? Because that's why I was excited for this conversation, because he was told that he wasn't allowed, but he was okay with that. And so I don't know if that was him just kind of accepting it, or if he could see that the pathway he was on was perhaps it didn't need high school soccer, and he didn't feel perhaps that, school bond or that feeling of representing this high school anyway. But I think it's tough when all of his teammates from his club team are now off playing high school soccer and playing for city championships and school pride like we talk about. But I think maybe if he was given the choice and the options, perhaps he would take that choice. But I don't think players are ever really given that choice.
Right. Yeah. And, going back on that, I tell all my club girls and girls that I train privately too is like and boys, if just go out and try it out. I mean, that you're not just gonna always learn from one coach. There's coaches out there that can maybe not be the best coaches, and you learn something from them. You might learn something that your primary coach may not see, and I say this because I know a lot of players out there that kind of lack self confidence, but then there could be a coach who may be good at rebuilding that self confidence, and when they go back to club, that next you know that their self confidence is high, and I always tell my girls I'm not the best coach out there. I have a little bit of experience, but something that I take pride in is building players' confidence, and just again, players should just try to learn from different coaches. You become a better player once you learn from other coaches and teammates as well.
You talk about this idea of developing confidence and kind of connecting with the player too. And I think if we look at even the playing time issue and maybe players not earning a starting spot or playing in the big games and such, how do you work through those situations? Do you have a couple key things that you do when you're trying to build this confidence or build this environment or relationship with players?
Yes, definitely important to build that, because you will get players that are like, all right, I'm in this team, like this is a really good team. How come I'm not playing games? How come I'm not playing, starting? And you'll get players who will come up to you and ask you this question. And what I like to do is, I like to offer, personal training for the high school girls, and I tell them, hey, I feel like you need to work on this. Let me know how I can help you become better. And I always text the girls after the game, after training sessions, or before, and let them know, hey, like this is what you kind of missing out on, and can you improve? Let's try to improve on it. And just having a great coach athlete relationship is key for players' confidence, I think. And again, what I like to do a lot is they have players who might have not played well, but it's just having that trust and that key that coach athlete relationship strong. And if they're not starting right now, say they're a freshman or sophomore, I tell the girls, hey, look, I see you, my future plans, and I want you to play like this and like that, and it's continue to build on this and see what we can make the best out of it. And I let them know, like, let me know how I can make your high school experience better. And they're pretty, these girls are mentally strong, and they will speak up once the coach is really interested in them.
A good point about really connecting with the players and letting them know that you're there. And I want to reiterate the point that you said about if you feel like a player needs to improve in a certain aspect, and maybe that's an effect in their playing time or something that can really help them improve in gaining more playing time, that you actually offer that support to them too. Because I think a typical approach as a coach is to critique. We often try and fix before we really understand. But really saying to a player, you need to do better at X, Y, and Z. But offering that too is something that maybe as a coach we could all do a little bit better of, and really connecting with that individual on the how and not just necessarily what.
Yes, exactly. Yes, telling players like how can they improve is great. And as a coach, I'm still learning a lot about myself. So there's times where I messed up and I let some players down, but then at the same time I was also to those players that might have got their hopes down or confidence down, I was able to reach back to them and let them know, hey, I've been learning a lot and learning a lot about coaching and more, and just know that I believe in you, and I'll offer some training again and let them know, hey, this is how I want you to improve, and I'll send them like some videos of some players or watch some players, and just build on their skills as well. But yeah, it's always I'm a firm believer of all my players that I coach, and I always try to get the best out of them if I can, whether they like me or not. I'm always there for my players.
You'd said, "I believe in you," and imagine how empowering that is to be told that from anybody, that somebody says, "I believe in you." Like, my wife says, "I believe in you. You can do it." I'm like, "Yeah, great, thanks." Like that, you have to say that. You're my wife, but I trust that she wouldn't say it if she didn't believe it. But then for your coach, and the impact that we have on players it goes so much further than just what we do in games and in practices. That they're talking about you when they're sat having dinner with their family, or high school girls are hanging out with a boyfriend and they're talking about soccer or their coach or whatever. Like,
right.
that those words have such a lasting effect on the players, or we just don't even realize. So thinking about being this positive role model for our players is it's so important. And often we say the wrong thing and it gets taken and it runs away from us, and we put these players in perhaps a bad mindset, or maybe they don't like us anymore because we called them out on something and we didn't quite do it in the right way that works for them. But if you are believing in every player and you're setting up every individual to have success, what does that look like in your team environment? Are you seeing a benefit? Have you done things differently and now doing things in a different way that you're seeing a comparison or a contrast or a significant improvement?
Oh yes, absolutely. And going back on earlier, one of the reasons why I decided to go observe coaches was because I wanted to learn more, because there was times where I as a coach messed up, and there was times where I'll be like, sometimes us coaches we're so stuck on winning, right? And there was times where when I first started coaching in my first year or so, I would promise players playing time, this and that, and sometimes that wouldn't happen, and then I'm the one that looked like a jerk, right?
Yeah.
And going based on the question you said, it's definitely I've definitely grown into my game in terms of like, if I were to promise something, make sure, if I say, hey Sally, you're gonna play these minutes, make sure Sally get those minutes. That way she won't become disappointed, but also she would be like, in her mind would be like, oh, coach believes in me. He's giving me that that chance to create something here, and I think my program, at least, I was able to do that with a lot of players, and I'll continue to do that more of that at my program. And we built a great team chemistry this year, and that's what got us far into the championship this year. And school hasn't gone into the championship in a while, and to be able to do that was great.
Now, do you, for feedback on that for you, do you then follow up with your players in terms of how did I do? Because I try and do this with my players. Right? I work on individual development plans with them, and I'm starting to ask the question of get them to become familiar with sharing their feelings and their feedback, and not just telling me, yeah, it was good, and removing that word from their vocabulary, or
Right.
I had fun, yeah, I liked it. Like, tell me more about it. So do you do the same thing with your players too?
Oh yes, absolutely. For the high school, at least, I do end of the season surveys, which is anonymous, and I put out some legitimate stuff out there, and ask questions. Like, there was a question I asked this season. How can I do a better job in improving you as an athlete, and stuff like that, and I had great responses. And some of the responses were, you didn't want to read it, but I mean it's it's something that you have to take, and not punish yourself, I guess you can say. But it's great to get that feedback from them, because they might see something else, and at the end of the day, they're the ones playing the sport, right? And at the end of the day, also you want them to develop. So I definitely take their feedback seriously, and I always try to see, okay, how can I improve this next year. And so, what I did again, did that survey, and now I'm like planning, okay, this is what I need to do a bit better. So yeah, I think it's great giving those surveys. I always do them anonymous because, I want to know what players are saying.
Now, do you find that you get a more honest response by doing it anonymously?
Oh yes, absolutely. I get a lot of honest response. I mean, I know one of them. I know one of them this year just stated, I think you could do a better job in just communicating a bit better with those and this and that. And I thought that was valid because I thought that was actually one of my weaknesses, and I'm glad some girls were able to see it, and of course other girls were able to spot up some other weaknesses of mine that I didn't even know of, that I wasn't aware of, and gives me more confidence and knowing that, okay, these girls see this. How can I improve on this? And I'm lucky enough that I have a lot of great network of coaches who I can rely on and ask them questions and ask them, hey, they said this. How can I improve on this from your experience? So
it's a big deal that I don't think maybe enough coaches do it, and that's often asking for that feedback. And much like the idea of minutes, it's uncomfortable. So when someone says, can I get minutes? You just say, yeah, sure, and get them away from you and get them out of your face. And so you don't have to deal with that situation. It's awkward, it's uncomfortable. And
yes,
I think maybe the situation's the same in terms of asking for feedback, in that players will probably just tell you what they think you want to hear. And I agree with you. The idea of being anonymous it helps a lot because to be honest, you probably know who the players are anyway. You can tell by their writing styles or the issues that they may have had because you're an observing individual. You kind of see the way players behave, or the players that haven't played so much. You can probably figure out who they are. And I don't think the point is to know who it is, but you can always tell. But the main thing is getting that feedback, because it's easy for someone to just ignore it.
Yeah, absolutely. And going on that too is just, I like to create a positive environment for all my teams, for club and high school, middle school. I've always liked to, and I've learned this from coaches and coaching education. One coach one time told me as my undergrad at San Francisco State, he's like, the way you get more from players or from athletes is, when you come and you bring the energy to the team. If you come with the mad phase or something, then teams are not going to respond well. You make sure you're always positive and this and that. And I learned that from him, and I'm very energetic when I come to the field. I stand by the fans and greet every player, and like I always ask questions and I always try to switch it up. I'm not always saying like, how was your day? I was like, who inspired you today, right? It's just simple stuff like that, simple questions, kind of get to pair like, oh, well, coach is asking me questions. He's interested
about me, yeah.
Right? And so again, building that relationship, give at them at the personal level. I think it's important. They're humans first and players second. So I think that's very important.
Do you have a way that and maybe you do, maybe you don't, and maybe a conflict, I'm not sure, but the way that you can connect with your players? So the season being so short, I know that you said you work with some of your players in both formats of club and high school. What about those players that play elsewhere? Do you have contact with them in the off season too?
Oh yes, absolutely. Like like right now with the situation, I'll text some of them. Hey, some of them play out, far. I'm like, hey, what are you doing to improve and during these times? Are you staying active? If you're not, please let me know, and I can set up, like a little fitness thing for you or something. Just trying to get a hold of them, and not just the player but also the parents. Like, hey, how is Sally doing? How is she getting better? And just really, really again, like texting them, calling them. I usually try to call them more just because it's more personal, I guess. But also tell them, hey, I'm available whenever you guys want to call or text. Just know that I'm here for you girls, and I want to help you.
So given that the school season is so short, and I know you're involved in club, what do you do kind of beyond the high school? Is that the highlight of your year? Is that just a part of what you do? I know that our focus here has been all about high school, so I think I know the answer to it. But what are you doing outside of that high school season?
I coach club, and then I do private trainings. But I also teach, elementary PE. So I mean, it's that's what I do. I love coaching, whether it may be soccer, whether it may be other sports, or whether it may be just getting athletes and students just getting active is important to me. But yeah, I think high school is the biggest highlight for me, just because although we have a lot of games, it could be short and it could be long at times. You can make it long by going through postseason. But yeah, definitely is the most highlight of my coaching career, just because it's just the atmosphere and just it's great. I like it.
I'm fast becoming a convert supporter of high school. I think I've had several conversations on this now with coaches who are applying their trade, really, that they use all of their other experiences to deliver the best experience for the high school athletes. And I always thought that high school was a secondary thought, maybe for coaches that were off season and had nothing else to do. But Actually, I think it's kind of going the other way, that this is the highlight because it's such a competitive and quote unquote professional environment.
Yeah. And again, I mean, there's like going back on the question earlier, some coaches may be opposed to the high school, but then again, I mean, if you have half of your club team playing high school and half not playing, I mean, at least, they might not be playing in the highest, high school level, but at least they're out there, getting touches on the balls and getting those touches on the ball is very important. I mean, you improve by playing in the game, right? And, they'll continue to improve, no doubt about it, whether it may be high level or low level. I mean, they can be the greatest player on the lowest, high school division, and yet you might have, players. They might play a great team, and they may be the best team in their high school team, and they'll like triple team her or double team a player, and they'll learn ways to get out of that situation, and then they can translate that into a club. And although it might have been a low level high school team, they learned something, right? So
yeah, absolutely,
I think that's very, very important. Just get the players out there. At the end of the day, they are playing the game.
Yeah, they are. We're the facilitators. If we really understand our position, we're the ones setting them up to go and execute.
Exactly.
So now, how do the listeners get in touch with you? How do they follow along with your story? How do they follow along with what you're doing, Migzi?
Yeah, I'm on social media. Instagram is the best option for them to get a hold of me. I'm on LinkedIn as well. Twitter. I have my email. I believe on the Instagram. If you go on there and click the email, they can message me through there, or just direct message me through Instagram. I mean,
Coach Migzi, right?
Yeah, Migzi, coach, and then Migzi. So I love networking with coaches, and I just love networking with many, and there's projects out there that I can be involved in. I'll be more than happy. I mean, I have a lot of free time right now, and again, I'm a young coach, and I just really want to learn from more veteran coaches and just learn the game more. Before chatting with you, I was reading some LeeDunneSoccer stuff. They have free stuff out there, so I mean, just taking advantage of any resources out there is beneficial for me, and I'm sure other coaches.
We're in a unprecedented time, right? So we don't really know what our season, if any season, is gonna look like, and
exactly,
where we may end up back on the field. And so I know I tell people that listen to this all the time. I talk about Twitter, and I talk about all the other social media platforms in which there are so many like-minded people out there. You've just got to put yourself out there, or at least reach out to people. If you see someone doing something that you like or talking about something that you like, most coaches, you are the prime example in that you spend a lot of time shadowing people who to be honest, don't owe anything. They don't need to have you shadow. They get
Right.
you like nothing out of it. But that just goes to show the what the soccer environment is like. That everybody is trying to benefit their players and benefit the game. And if anybody ever had any reservations about reaching out to anyone, then I think
Exactly.
you've set the standard here that nobody's ever really going to say no to you.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And no, I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I was able to build something off my, social media, like, just like you and I connected, Twitter and Instagram, and I contacted it a lot and connected with a lot of coaches through social media again, and it's great. It's a great atmosphere. I think we're in a great time right now that connecting with coaches and individuals who may be in the career that you want to be in is you have a lot of access out there. It's just a matter of you sending the message and connecting with those people. So again, thank you.
No, Migzi, thank you very much, mate. I am excited for everybody to listen to the story of high school here from you, and I want to kind of praise you really for putting yourself out there and just trying to be the best that you can be, because your players are going to benefit, and the environment in which you create and the environments you work are only going to create a better experience for those players. And if we're really looking at the amount of players that are going to go on from there and become lovers of the game and become the next level of coaches because they had such a positive experience, then I can only thank you enough for doing that for the game. So thank you, mate. Migzi shares a really, really interesting story, and one that I've come to appreciate so much more, especially over the last few years of coaching older players and really understanding their drive and what matters a lot to them in terms of the pride of them representing their school. And I think that's really important and often forgotten. It was certainly forgotten by me when I was influenced by coaches early on, and the changing the high school soccer landscape to really appreciate what the environment creates for players. And as Migzi says there, the environment that you can create and the replication of the next steps for those players is really important. So I've certainly become a convert in supporting this overall idea of kids playing for their high school. And it's not a case of saying they should or they shouldn't, but certainly an opinion on it. I'm never going to tell a player that they can or cannot. But I really take away just the main point from Migzi here of believing in the players and letting them know that. I think that was a significant takeaway. So definitely connect with Coach Migzi on Instagram and Twitter at Coach Migzi. You can also connect with me, as always, at LeeDunneSoccer. During these trying times, I'm trying to bring as many podcasts as I can, so look out for another one coming next week. And in the meantime, follow along, LeeDunneSoccer.com. I have a bunch of content available on there in terms of you assessing your own environment with a mastermind environment. I'm offering some training online for teams where we use the tools of like Zoom content I've done it with my players, and I'm looking to do it with your players or your individuals too. So reach out, let's connect, let's talk more about how we are challenging and engaging not only ourselves but our players too. And until next time, I'll speak to you soon.